All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to crack a hidden code. It's a secret number that's been shaping our world for, well, millennia. You'll find it everywhere, from the incredible spiral of a galaxy to the front of some of the most jaw-dropping buildings on Earth. You've probably felt this yourself, right? You look at a building, could be an ancient temple, could be a brand new skyscraper, and there's just a sense of perfect harmony. Everything fits. It just feels right. So what's the secret sauce? Well, a lot of the time, the answer boils down to this one number, 1.618. Now, this isn't random. It's known as the golden ratio, and it's kind of like a fundamental blueprint for what our eyes and our brains perceive as beautiful, both in nature and in the stuff we build. Okay, so how can a single number have that much power over what we find beautiful? To really get its role in architecture, we first need to understand what it actually is. So this divine proportion is officially known as the golden ratio, and you'll often see it represented by the Greek letter phi. To put it simply, just picture a line that's split into two unequal parts. The magic happens when the ratio of the entire line to the longer chunk is the exact same as the ratio of that longer chunk to the shorter chunk. Now listen, don't get hung up on the formula. The main takeaway here is just how elegant the idea is. It creates this perfect, repeating relationship between parts. And for whatever reason, our brains are just wired to see that and think, yeah, that looks good. It feels balanced. It feels natural. And here's where it gets truly wild. We didn't invent this. I mean, not at all. This ratio is literally everywhere in nature. It's in the way flower petals are arranged. It's in the perfect spiral of a seashell. You can see it in the way trees branch out, and even in the proportions of the human body. It's like a universal constant for good design. So, if this ratio is nature's own blueprint for beauty, it makes total sense that humans would eventually notice it and try to use it, right? So, let's do that. Let's take a quick tour through time and see how architects have tried to tap into this natural code. We're going to start way back in ancient Greece and Egypt, swing through the Renaissance with guys like Da Vinci, and then jump right into the modern era. And you'll see, this divine proportion just keeps showing up. Let's start with maybe the most famous example of all, the Parthenon in Athens. It was built over 2,000 years ago, and people still look at it as one of the most perfectly balanced and harmonious buildings ever made. And here's why. The whole front of the Parthenon fits almost perfectly inside what's called a golden rectangle. That's just a rectangle where the long side divided by the short side gives you 1.618. The proportions of the whole facade, the height of the columns, the spacing, it all seems to follow this one simple rule. And that gives it that look of just timeless perfection. But it's not just the Parthenon, not by a long shot. Once you start looking, people claim to find the golden ratio in so many other masterpieces. It's supposedly in the proportions of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the beautifully balanced front of the Taj Mahal, and even in the soaring arches of Notre Dame. And this isn't just some ancient lost secret either. You can fast forward all the way to the 20th century and find famous modernist architects like Le Corbusier who were explicitly and intentionally using the golden ratio in their work. We're talking everything from private homes to huge projects like the UN headquarters. Which brings up a really practical question. How does an architect actually use a weird, irrational number to build a real thing? How does it go from being math on a page to a tool you can actually design with? Well, they use it as a kind of unifying system for the whole project. It can help lay out a floor plan, for example. It can set the proportions of the building's facade, or dictate how far apart the windows and columns should be to look just right. It becomes a visual guide for the entire design. And the goal is always the same, to create a sense of balance and beauty. It's a way to make sure that every single part of a building relates to the whole, so you end up with a structure where everything just feels like it fits. But here is where the story gets really interesting and honestly a little controversial. After everything we've seen, there's still a huge debate in the architecture world. Is the golden ratio a real intentional method, or is it all just a beautiful myth? So on one hand, the evidence seems pretty solid. You've got modern architects like Le Corbusier who literally wrote about using it on purpose. But on the other side, you've got skeptics who say its appearance in ancient buildings is just a coincidence. They argue that humans are just naturally drawn to good proportions, which happen to be close to 1.618, and that we're basically just drawing lines on old photos to find a pattern that was never really there to begin with. So what's the right answer? I mean, what do you think? Is this a secret, foundational tool that's been passed down for centuries? Or are we just finding some beautiful math in what amounts to a string of incredible coincidences? You know, when you step back, whether it's always used on purpose or it's sometimes just a happy accident, its connection to what we find beautiful is pretty undeniable. There's just something special about these proportions. For thousands of years, the golden ratio has completely fascinated mathematicians, artists, and architects, connecting something as vast as a galaxy to the front of a small cathedral. I think this quote really nails it. Whether by design or coincidence, it's clear that this divine proportion leaves a golden touch. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If the golden ratio is one of these hidden blueprints for beauty, what other codes, what other secret patterns are out there, just waiting for us to find them in the art, nature, and design we see every single day?